Arcade Heroes.
Greetings, it's Adam with ArcadeHeroes.com, and over the years I've covered indie arcade games, which are a bit more interesting, at least to me, than your typical indie game. While I do respect and appreciate the indie gaming movement, which has brought a lot of variety and interesting ideas to the scene, it's become a little bit difficult to find games that maybe you're into just because there's so many games that are launched out there. But on the arcade scene, it takes a lot more to get your game developed and out into public than it does on, say, like Steam or eShop or Xbox Live Arcade. And that's because in addition to developing the software, you also have to develop a cabinet. And you also have to change how you design the game, because what works for consoles or PC does not work for being in an arcade business like this and asking for people's coins, or in a lot of situations it's card swipes these days. But either way, there's still an indie movement that has survived the pandemic, and so I've talked about that before with Indie Arcade Wave, Joe over at Indie Arcade Wave, which you can check his videos out on YouTube and many other spots like Odyssey and BitChute and whatnot. But if you've wanted to take your game creation to the next level and put it into an actual cabinet, well, there are two events that are taking place this week, by the end of this week, that will give you that opportunity and maybe save you the cost of building one of these, because that's one thing that, again, does hinder a lot of people from releasing their game into this business, is because it's not cheap to develop a bunch of arcade cabinets, and it's also a pretty high risk. Most indies that I've heard of have sold under 100 cabinets, and that it's still pretty difficult to come up with the funds, especially these days with all the different production issues going on, that and the inflation and etc., to be able to get your game into this format. But let's talk about these game jams that will give you the opportunity to put your skills to the test and compete against others to develop a real arcade game. So the first one is called the NoticeMe Game Jam, or hashtag NoticeMe Game Jam, and it's sponsored by GXC and GameMaker Studio, as well as Opera GX. Opera GX is a browser. It's based on the Opera browser, but it's been specifically tuned for gamers, and I've actually been using it for a little while, and they haven't paid me or anything to talk about it, just I've enjoyed it. I've been using it. In fact, as I'm talking about this game jam here, I'm using that browser. But anyways, so what they say on their website is that imagine your game in an arcade cabinet. Create a game in GameMaker, publish it on GXC to win cash prizes from a pool of 33,000 USD and a chance for your game to be featured in arcade cabinets. And so this one, the theme that developers are supposed to follow will be revealed on March 4th, and then the duration of this game jam is from March 4th through the 18th. And the winners will be announced by the popular YouTuber PewDiePie. And as you can see here, there are a number of cash prizes. The pool is $33,000, but if you get first place, you get $10,000, $5,000 for second, $4,000 for third, and so on. And it mentions the top 10 games, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to be uploaded into physical arcade machines and played by thousands in locations around the world to talk about retro. Now, I do not know if this GXC has their own game cabinet in development, or if they'll use somebody else's, like Polycade or something along those lines. Since it mentions uploaded, then I imagine it's not something like the X Arcadia, which does not do that. They use physical cartridges. But I hadn't heard of this GXC until I got this, and so I would need to do a little bit more research and find out what that will entail exactly. But as it also mentions on the website, there are other ways to get extra credit, extra cash. and they will have a judging panel composed of members of GameMaker and Opera GX teams. They'll be put to a public vote on March 29th. It'll be up to you to pick the winners. I guess to throw it out there, it would be nice if they would find some people within the arcade industry to be able to make the judgments, because that's one challenge that I've noticed, that sometimes there have been an independent game maker here or there that create something that still is more stylized for consoles and maybe includes things that don't really work in a coin-operated environment like this. And so it probably would be good for them to have somebody who's familiar with the business and not just the games to maybe help make some judgments, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And so the top 5 games will be revealed on April 11th. PewDiePie will announce the winners in a video on his channel. And then there are a number of other rules that have to be followed, and they have different things here in the FAQ, but this can be found at gxe.gg/game-jam, and again, that's a pretty good opportunity, but it's not the only one, and so I almost wonder if you can do both of these that I'm going to mention. The other one is called the Arcade Jam, and this is being sponsored by the Arcade Vaults, as well as a few other UK-based companies such as Tiny Rebel Brewing, Esports Wales, Voodoo Ranger UK, HyperX, and Skylife HQ, and Sega Amusements. And so, as it says on the flyer, develop a game, win a trip to EAG 2023, which is an arcade event, a trade show that's actually, the 2022 event is happening a day from when I'm filming this, or half a day away. But as it mentions on this flyer, here's the timeline. So this actually starts a day after the aforementioned NoticeMe Game Jam. It's on the 5th of March, where they will reveal brief details and rules at the Arcade Vaults. And then registration will open, and that's open between the 5th and the 12th. And then from the 12th of March through the 9th of April, giving you 4 weeks, there's the development period and submission. And then on the 23rd of April, they'll have the showcase of games at the Arcade Vaults. And this also does mention on the Facebook post that Sega Amusements will be making the judgments there, and it sounds like that you'll essentially be creating a game that Sega will take and turn into an arcade game that can then again be put into a cabinet like this and sold using their existing network of sales, which would broaden the not just the appeal, but the chances of it being picked up by, say, arcades like mine. To give you one example, over here, it's I'm in one of my 2 locations here, and right behind me is a Sega House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn, and I also have a Luigi's Mansion right behind that. And so, yeah, if you want a really good chance at getting your game into arcades like this, then working with a company like Sega is a pretty good one to have on the roster. So yeah, those are the 2 game jams that are happening at about the same time. I imagine maybe you can apply for both and see where it goes, although I doubt they would want having both being accepted for the first place. But still, again, if you are a developer and want to get your creation out there into arcades, then this seems like a great way to do it. And so we'll be keeping our eye on this and see how it shakes out. And good luck to those who are going to submit, and may the best game win.